Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 104 of the Mugs Up Show, where today will be my addiction story part 5. Now, first and foremost, I apologize that it's been 13 fucking days since I left you in the dark at the end of parts 4 of my story. I actually got called out by one of our groupies or listeners, whatever you want to call it, last night about how I've been slacking the last 2 weeks. And I have been slacking, but life's been busy, it's been hectic, and so it is what it is. I'm going to try to do better going forward. Progress, not perfection, as many addicts would say. And since I'm talking about my addiction in these last few episodes in this one, that's the perfect reason for why I haven't gotten anything done on this in the last 13 days. But anyway, we're going to pick up where we left off. If y'all remember, I was talking about... I need to drink coffee first. Hold on. I was talking about how at this point in life, I had gone through my first year at Mississippi State. I basically had become a full-blown cokehead and alcoholic. I fucked off all my grades pretty bad, and I had made the decision at the end of the first year that I wouldn't go back because, you know, if I was going to go back to college, I needed to be more focused. So I needed to take some time off and recalibrate. And the recalibration did kind of happen, but it got very dark getting recalibrated or refocused on school. At the end of that year, I moved to Amarillo, Texas. And I lived with one of my best friends from high school. And before I go any further, let me tell everybody something. Like, throughout these episodes, I'm going to talk about different towns and stuff like that. And I want everybody to know that drugs are everywhere. So it like whatever town I'm talking about and whatever drugs I'm doing in whatever town, that doesn't mean that place is a bad town. Drugs are literally everywhere. And it's the human that chooses to do them. So it doesn't make the town bad. It just means the human living in the town doing the drugs has an issue. So I just wanted to clarify that. I got a lot of friends that live in Amarillo, Texas, and I don't want anybody thinking that I'm knocking on Amarillo. It just so happens that's where I did a whole lot of cocaine in my life, but that was my choice. So I moved to Amarillo, Texas, and within weeks of living there, I realized that I am living in between two drug dealers. So I live in an apartment that is like the hallways and the doors and everything, they're on the inside. It's almost kind of like a hotel, but it's an apartment. And on both sides of me, one to the right of me and then across the hall from me, in both of those apartments live drug dealers. And so drug users are really good at identifying those people and befriending them. And very quickly, I became friends with both drug dealers. And I'm going to be honest, they were super nice dudes. I mean, really, really nice guys. But they were drug dealers. And so it became very easy for me to access cocaine. Way easier now than it was at Mississippi State. And so, at Mississippi State, my cocaine habit was kind of a, Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday type habit, where now I live in between two drug dealers. I can do coke as much as I want. And what happened is I became good friends with these drug dealers, and I started getting a little bit of a friend discount, which was nice. But then, as I started making a lot of other friends in Amarillo, I didn't say this, but I started working at a restaurant in Amarillo. And for those of you that have worked in the restaurant industry, you know what a fucking party that can be. And I started making friends with many of the people that worked at this restaurant I worked at. And come to find out, they all loved cocaine too. And so I started hooking them up with my connections. And the more people I brought to my friends that dealt drugs that lived in my apartment, the bigger my discount became. To the point to where I would get free 8 balls of cocaine every now and then. And an 8 ball is typically 3 to 3.5 grams of cocaine. And, you know, for the average coke user, that could be split between 3 or 4 buddies to have a really good time on a Friday or Saturday night. I got to the point to where I could do half to a full 8 ball myself if I really wanted to. But anyway, that's beside the fact. I was getting a great discount on cocaine, and it became very easy to do it on a very, very regular basis. And within, 2 or 3 months, my habit, or maybe I should call it a cocaine addiction at this point, had gone from being a thing to where, like, I would get cocaine on a Thursday or Friday night, party really hard through the night, drink a whole lot and be able to not ever feel drunk because the cocaine basically cancels out the alcohol and you can just party all night. And as soon as it ran out, I would go to sleep and sleep for hours and wake up, at 3 or 4 in the afternoon the next day. It had progressed from that to now I'm to the point to where I'm staying up for 2 or 3 days at a time without going to sleep, and either buying enough cocaine to make it that long, but usually buying cocaine, running out, going and getting more, doing it, running out, going and getting more, and it just became this thing to where I would stay up for 2 or 3 days at a time, and then just absolutely crash at that point. But that had kind of become somewhat of a lifestyle at that point. After about probably maybe 3 months of living in Amarillo, I found out that there was actually some guys that lived down below me that were from another small town in the Texas Panhandle, and we used to play football against them. We kind of knew them from high school, just kind of. Back in high school, we were all tough, and we thought each other were from different towns were pieces of shit. But now we're out of school, and like it's like you kind of put that in the past, and you want to be friends now. And so we found out they lived below us. They were having a party one night. We went down there, and we were having a good time. There was a shitload of people there, and I asked one of the guys at the party, I was like, hey, it was getting to, probably close to midnight. And at that point, you're getting pretty drunk. The way it always worked for me, or not always, but a lot of times, like I always started out boozing. And as soon as I would start feeling enough of a buzz where I was like, okay, I'm going to start getting kind of drunk, and I don't want to get drunk because I want the party to keep going, and if I get too drunk, I pass out and the party stops, and I'm done for the night. About the time I started feeling like a little past a buzz, I would immediately think, okay, it's time to get coke because I want this party to keep going. I need this alcohol I've drank to not be having this effect on me. And so the next step was to locate cocaine. And so around, 11 o'clock at this party this one night down below us in our apartment, I asked one of these guys from a different town I knew from high school, I said, hey, do you guys have any cocaine? And the guy smiled at me and he said, fuck cocaine. How about some Jenny Crank? And I had no fucking idea what he was talking about. We all know what Jenny Craig is. It's a very famous weight loss clinic. And so I asked him, I was like, what the hell is Jenny Crank? And he was like, speed, bro. And I was like, oh, like meth? And he said, yeah, man, meth. He's like, we got some of that. You want some of that? And I was fucking terrified. It took me back to that same feeling that I felt in the bathroom when I first did the cocaine. Like, absolutely fucking terrified. But like at this point in my life, like coke, for some reason, growing up and whatever, like I never registered it as a dirty drug, like as a like drug that only pieces of shit do. I kind of more associated it with like a drug that only people with money do. But speed, methamphetamine, I always like, it just had this like fucking dirty, trashy ass like vibe to me. And so I turned it down. I was like, no, not at all. I don't want any of that shit. And he's like, you sure, man? It's fucking way better than coke. And I was like, nah, dude, I'm good, man. I'll go without. And so I was able to say no that night. But about 2 weeks later, it was about the same time, 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'm getting pretty fucking drunk and I'm wanting to stay awake and keep partying. And I'm around these same dudes. And again, I ask them, hey, do you know how I can get some coke? And same dude, you don't need coke. Just try this shit. And when he did that, when he said, just try this shit, popped up a little bitty baggie, full, a little, the bottom was about this, the bag was about this wide. The bottom had about this much clearish white crystals in the bottom, looked like little bitty shards of glass. It was straight crystal meth. And he tapped the bag. He turned it over. He tapped it out. And he put about this much of a little spot of it on the counter. And he said, just snort that. You won't regret it. And so once again, scared to death, but I fucking did it. And within seconds, I felt the most amazing fucking high I had ever felt in my entire fucking life. I mean, it was basically cocaine times 1,000 is what it felt like. I had never felt anything like it. And so the only downside at the moment was that when I snorted it, it felt like somebody was cramming fucking razor blades up my nose. It was very, very painful. Cocaine was not painful at all. And so that little bitty bump of speed kept me up, I think, for another 24 hours. I didn't have to do any more than that little bitty bump of it, and I was up for 24 hours. Which leads me to the absolute most terrible feeling in the world. When you come down on meth, it is probably the most terrible feeling a human could feel. You feel like the world's biggest piece of shit. You feel like you don't even deserve to live and that your life is in absolute shambles and that like you don't even want to go on. Like I mean, it's the most depressing, sad feeling I've ever felt in my life. And so going forward in my whole drug use, you know, I wasn't against doing speed, but I would only do it when there was no way I could find cocaine. But when I couldn't find cocaine and speed or methamphetamine, whatever you want to call it, was readily available, I would always take part in that because it allowed the party to go on. And that is always what I was trying to make happen. I did not want the party to end. I did not want the feeling of, I didn't want the best feeling in my life to go away. I was scared of that feeling going away. In Amarillo, while I was there, that was one of the darkest times in my addiction. I mean, I'm gonna have some more part of my story where some really bad, terrible shit happens. But like one of the darkest parts of my life was while I was there. My cocaine use and using methamphetamines and all of that just got to such a high level that I stopped talking to people. I stopped talking to my family members, all my other friends. I wasn't communicating with anybody. I felt very, very alone. Even though I was living with one of my best friends in the world, it became a very sad, depressing existence. I even, like, I talk to my mom almost every day, if not every other day, have for my whole life. And this is the only time in my life where I basically even started avoiding my mom. And the only way I would ever talk to my mom is when I needed money. And that made me feel like an even bigger piece of shit. So this time got really, really dark. Like around April, May of that year, I decided, I was like, I can't do this shit for the rest of my life. I can't just keep working at a restaurant and leading this life of, drug-induced restaurant working party. It didn't work for me. And so I got really motivated to go back to college and try to figure out a better path for myself. The drug use and the alcohol use and all of that shit, it did not go away. But I was at least motivated to go back to school and try to find out how to make something more of myself. And that's where I'll stop today, because the next part of the story would be me going back to Mississippi State. And kind of continuing down the path of my alcoholism and drug addiction. So I hope y'all enjoy part 5 of the story. And I hope you all have a great Thursday, Friday, and weekend. I am going to be going on a fishing trip with my brother this weekend, starting tomorrow. So I won't see any of you tomorrow, but I love you all. Mugs up. We'll see you next week for episode 105 of the Mugs Up Show. We love you.